have two very distinguished agents doing cross-border business, the same for two managers. And I've also been admonished a casting director, there is no such thing as a casting agent. So for everybody to know that. So PoPing AuYeung, who is a casting director, also doing a great deal of business between China and the United States. Christina Chou of CAA, David Unger, Artists International, Andrew Uy, Echelon, and Lucia Liu, UTA. So I think everybody thinks they know what agents do. Everybody thinks they know what managers do and what casting directors do. But I'd actually like for you guys to tell the audience what you really do, what your jobs are really like on a day-to-day basis. What is it that you're really doing? What are you trying to achieve? And PoPing, you were giving me some information before. We'll start with you. You were telling me just 2 minutes ago what it is that the casting director is and why you can't be on both sides of a transaction.
Oh, because when he called me a casting agent, I said, I'm not an agent, I'm a casting director, because an agent implies that you take a commission, and we don't. We are paid by the producers. And so we don't take a commission from the actors. And I have been approached by many actors in China or in Asia to be the managers. And I said, I can't do that because I cannot represent you and also push you for the job. And when you get cast, I will be negotiating with myself, right? My loyalty is to the producer to get the best deal for the best actor. But as a manager, you want to get the actor the best money, the best pay, right? So there's a conflict.
Yeah, I think,
so, go ahead, Christina.
I think to build off of that and also respond to some of your questions, Steve, is, what does a manager and what does an agent do? I feel like very generally and very broadly, we are problem solvers. And we are advocates, we're connectors. And I think that's probably the most satisfying part of the job, is to actually say, here's a client, whether they're an actor or a multi-hyphenate, right? A producer, a writer, and a director. And we say, where do you want to go? How do you get from A to B? And we help them create that path. We also get inbound opportunities and help figure out, like PoPing said, how do we get the most opportunity for our talent? And that's part of the job that makes it fun, I think. Nothing is ever the same.
Yeah, just to add to Christina's point, agents and managers really work together, right? We serve the clients together, and we handle different sides of the businesses, but it's everything is client-centric, and we just walk hand in hand with the client and with the producers because we're all problem solvers.
Can I ask you something, Lucia? Like, when you make a submission, let's say, I put a breakdown out, you make a submission, do you talk to the manager first and you do it together? Because sometimes I find that, like, when I release a breakdown, I would get the same actor submitted to me by the different managers and different managers and agents, like multiple submissions.
Yeah, I think that depends because some actors, maybe they are more close with the managers, but I think the materials, every time you send out a breakdown, it goes to the agents and the managers, and managers and agents are supposed to discuss together and then get back to you, right, Andrew?
Yeah, and as managers, what we do is we cover, we are the conduit between the agents, because sometimes there's so many agents in an agency, so we're the conduit between the agents and the client. And in this space where we occupy in this room, it's Asia and it's China and Asia and the US, so it's a lot of coordinating. And as managers, we also help them in directing their career, and it's about career management, pretty much that, right, David?
Absolutely. David, do you see any material distinctions, though, necessarily between, you're all problem solvers, as Christina just said, and you're all furthering the interests of your clients, and you're trying to help them, again, as Christina said, get from A to Z and reach their objectives. Are there differences in the way you try to approach that? Are there differences in your perspectives on getting from A to Z?
The difference between an agent and a manager?
Yeah.
I have a controversial view of that, and that the role of an agent is changing. and the role of managers are changing as well, simply because we're dealing with a new streaming economy and a new content economy, and managers are looking to benefit from that by producing, and agents are now doing the same. So we've seen the rise now of companies like Endeavor Content, and UTA and CAA both are building out their own production entities. So that's reconstituting the hierarchy and the differences between an agent and a manager. I don't know if everyone here understands, but there once was a time when agents were forbidden from producing, and I think technically are still forbidden from producing, because they're licensed agents. And managers were not forbidden, and so managers would then basically take advantage of that by becoming producing partners with their clients and packaging projects alongside their clients. And the agencies have kind of migrated toward that position. So I think there's a reordering of the world today. And I think that's just a response to the technology that's changed the way projects are being put together.
So Christina, coming back to that and the notion of agents producing with their clients, I think there are some very significant differences between the way an agent and a manager function in the Chinese marketplace versus their functionality here in the US, including what I think David just alluded to. So maybe you could help us a little bit understand and see some of those differences.
Yeah, and I'll build off of what David said about how the market has changed with the advent of streaming platform. I think especially when you look at China, the changes that we've seen here in the Western market, with Amazon and Apple and Netflix, there are their own players in mainland China, Youku, iQIYI, you name it. There's so many, it's completely changed the marketplace. And I think with that, there's been a change in the amount of stars in China, the amount of talent, the amount of content creators. And I think with that, the role of agencies and people that touch talent have to also change. What's consistent between both markets is that, yes, everybody wears a lot of different hats. Some days you're their best friend, some days you're helping negotiate, some days you're giving them life advice. But I feel like now, something. But now, like you said, Steve, this idea of producing content. And I think it's not necessarily producing content. That's the way the market's shifting. That's always interesting because in China, you don't have those regulations that we have here, as David mentioned. So CAA China, we've been there for 14 years. We do have a development fund. We do have a production fund as well. But I think what's interesting is that now you have people that are making content in a very active and prolific way. And I think the question there is, how should we be representing, I think some of the questions that we get on the agency side is, should we be representing above and below the line in China now? You have so many very talented DPs, cinematographers, composers that are also creatives, that also need representation. So those are some fun things that we're looking at as the market shifts.
PoPing, I think there are some very big distinctions, though, both in terms of actually the charge, in other words, what kind of commission is charged in China, the role of the so-called agent and manager in the artist's life, compared to here where we have it more segmented, where we have agents, where we have managers, where we have business managers, where we have PR, and everything tends to get siloed. So maybe you could speak a little bit to that in terms of the differences between the two marketplaces.
I cannot speak too much for the managers and agents in China because in general I deal with English-speaking Asian actors. So I don't have the experience of dealing with some of the very local agencies, but I know they work very differently there. Some agencies or some company can sign you up for 10 years, right? And they act as agent, manager, PR, everything. They hire assistants for you. They have the whole entourage. So they really sometimes they sign you very young when you're 15, 16, so they own you for 10 years and they nurture you. They even get you teachers, like, English teachers. And so it's very different from here, But when I work with, one big difference when I work with Chinese agents in China and the agents here are, some of the English-speaking actors, they have the agents in China. They also have someone in America. And that's when sometimes I know that I prefer to go straight to the Chinese agent because I find the information is more accurate in terms of the schedule of the actor. Because I don't think the agents here, you guys can tell me, I don't think you guys here are told exactly if certain actor is available for a certain period of time, right?
Yeah, I can add to that.
Yeah.
So in China, we all know that the local agency business is still very young. So a lot of the agencies, they're wearing different hats. They're managers, they're agents, they're lawyers. They also handle the PR, and also like personal assistants are also assigned to those different clients. So they do everything for you. And because we work with a lot of the local talents who already have a local agency, so we work with them in terms of their availability, professional availability in China. We always check with the local agency because we find them English language project opportunities here, but most of their time, the talents, they dedicated to the greater China area. So their Chinese agents will always know better because they also handle their endorsement and everything. So we always check with them, but we work together.
Because from my experience, I find that when the breakdown goes out for an Asian role, usually the agents submit all the Asian actors. Everything they have on the roster, they would just give it to us. Whether the actor is available or not, whether he or she is right for the role or not. But when I'm dealing with the Chinese agents in China who actually, I call them the master schedulers. They know exactly for the next 6 months where the actor is going to do. So I get a very correct, detailed answer, right? And I think because you guys have to go back to them to ask them if this actor is right or not. So that takes a bit of more time for me. So sometimes I go straight to them.
I think sometimes what it is also that, when you're trying to schedule something and find someone's schedule, things, as you're checking, things are also incoming.
Happen, yeah.
So there is no, you can't say that, this is the set schedule, because I get a lot of calls from casting directors, other than yourself, checking for schedules, and it's like, today they're available, but you know what, tomorrow they're not, because they've been booked.
Well, that's what I mean, because the Chinese agent is the one who holds the actor's schedule. They can say yes or no for them, but the American agency cannot do that for your Chinese actors, right?
Yeah, because they always have a career there, and they want to have a career here, so we have to find the balance, and you just have to check every time with the team, so everyone is on the same on the same page. And also, they want to know what this opportunity is, so that a lot of the pending opportunities they have for the client in China, we can all discuss and balance.
So do you guys, I'm just curious about something, do you divide it up by territory, by language, by both? In other words,
very interesting.
Because obviously you are constantly communicating with each other, but one has primary responsibility either for a certain territory or possibly even by language. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I think we work together, but a lot of the clients that we sign, like Bing Bing, Angela Baby, Mark Chow, before we sign them, they already have their maybe Taiwanese agency or Chinese agency. So they're based in there. So their core business, major market is still in China. And when we work with them, we mostly handle, English language or, anything outside of China, co-production or English language here, or even opportunities in the European market. So I would say it's language and also the market.
To build off of that, I think, it's sometimes better for communication, for expectations and scope of service to have those broad buckets, but because the world is so global and opportunities don't always fit neatly into those buckets, I find that it really is about communication with the team. Like, for instance, I'm born and raised in Chicago. I have no business doing a Chinese language independent movie, but I somehow met a producer who was doing a wonderful independent movie, and, we flagged some of those opportunities for some of our clients. So I think a lot of it is just making sure the opportunity is going to be valuable for your client, communicating it with the managers, local managers, all levels of managers, and other agents as well, and landing that opportunity as a team.
But I think also ultimately it's the actor's decision,
True.
the client's decision.
That's right.
Yes.
Because we just give them the opportunities. We tell them what's on the table, what do you have that's available to you, which one do you want to do, which one do you want to pick.
But
And
I
then-
cannot go to the actors. I always go through
No,
you
I'm
guys
just saying
first.
that in general.
But what the
Yeah.
problems for me is, let's say I'm dealing with, I don't want to give any names, like real names.
Sure, come on, you can give them.
No. I still want to work in China. Let's say you represent John Doe in the U.S. for the U.S. market. And when I'm casting a co-production, which I do most of the time, where does that fall into? Is it a Chinese project or is it an American project, right? So the American agent said, no, PoPing, you come to me because this is an English language. The Chinese partner say, no, the Chinese manager, no, you come to us because we're the major investors. Who do I go to?
It doesn't
It's a
happen with
big
me
problem.
because I represent my clients everywhere. I have 360.
When it's a co-production, I get into trouble sometimes. So sometimes I do call the actors, which I don't like to do that. I prefer to go through the proper channels like you guys, right? But when they cannot agree, I call the actors. Okay, who do you want me to deal with? And then one guy said, my mom.
Well,
Good
in
answer.
China, the mother may actually be the manager and the
True.
agent and PR. We know that.
I think that's the interesting point, is where are we in normalizing, formalizing a really great representation business in Asia and China specifically? And if an actor is saying to PoPing, please call my mom, we have a long way to go. But I think it's...
No, because the mom is some kind of manager also.
But there are a lot of momagers, as they say. And so the challenge is, when are we going to get to a place where China has a similarly scaled representation business as we have here? And is it right for China, too? Some people might argue that it's working fine there because all the Chinese stars are working so frequently and they're so in demand. But it's still a little bit of a cultural leap for a lot of American producers. And it's a big challenge in trying to book some of these huge Chinese stars who are booked out years in advance, as you guys all know. And they're demanding salaries that are so enormous. So it's going to be a very interesting adjustment as the market finds itself.
It's changing so fast. Changing so fast. But you guys know what I'm talking about,
Yes.
right? Just actually a few days ago, right? An agent said to me, no, you don't have to talk to this person because we didn't sign a contract. It's like a case by case. I still have this actors worldwide contract, so since you know me so well, just talk to me. Right? But I said, well, but an American agent submitted the name, so it really put me sometime in a very awkward position.
Well, I think
Do you understand? Do you agree, though?
It can put a lot of people in an awkward position. I know I've encountered this, Christina, where clients obviously, particularly the production company clients, they just want to get to certain talent.
That's right.
And by hook or by crook.
Yeah.
And they're going to try this way or that way.
True.
And I think sometimes that creates conflicts for the agents and the managers, even between agents and managers. I mean, maybe you could talk a little bit about some of your experiences in that arena.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's and I can sympathize. I don't know if I've never been in that position, though, as frequently as you have, PoPing. And I don't think that there's an easy answer. I think client teams they all have a different chemistry. But I know, at least for us, we have a group of people that specifically look at crossover opportunities, and I think you probably get it from both sides. So it's a work in progress, and I hope we get to a place where we cause less trouble for you.
You guys have been pretty good.
We try.
You
We
guys,
try.
yeah.
And I think it's to keep that mindset that we're all trying to be additive to the clients, to the producers. Producers have such a hard job too. Making a movie is the hardest thing in the world. It's like almost like creating a child, except your children are all, adults with schedules that change.
So, I'm just wondering, maybe when you guys sign up a Chinese actor, is to have the agreement or some kind of arrangement with the Chinese manager, Chinese agent. How do you move forward?
Yeah.
Right?
Often, reductively, the solution looks like a giant WeChat group where all the information just goes in there. Maybe you can relate. I think,
You know what we also have? We also have Google Calendar. Google does not quite work in China, but I forced them to.
No, I only
So that
do.
everything is I can see immediately where and when they're supposed to be somewhere.
Yeah, I know there are a bunch of very smart tech people in the audience, so
Oh,
this
really?
can
Good.
be really solved. It would be great.
As a lawyer, I would say the WeChat group stuff is a nightmare, but I'll leave that. I realize
it's
that on your
functional.
end, you've got to do what you've got to do to make it work.
Yeah.
Because I also want to be fair to the agent, right? If you guys submit an actor to me, send me all the stuff, I want you to be part of it too. But when the Chinese agent, who is kind of the chief agent, the lead one, because they usually have the worldwide contract, and the America part is like subcontract out. Am I correct?
It depends. I think it really just
Depends on certain actors,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty clear with Andrew's actors, actually.
Andrew does a fantastic, and I know David
known
as
him for
well.
too
like,
long, so.
Doing cross-border work is so challenging. and
It's very challenging. It's unfair to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Lucia feel the same,
Yes.
right?
Because, like we said, we managers, agents from China and here, we work together. So we always talk about the same clients. If a Chinese financier comes to us with a project, do we not sell our clients in China? We do. But when we talked about that, maybe that financier also has already reached out to the Chinese agent, and then there's a conversation between us and the agent, and they say, hey, we think this is really great. It's in Chinese language, but it's going to have potential for the global market, blah, 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 so that we will have the conversation again. And then I think it also depends on the Chinese manager or agent. A lot of them are very open-minded, and they have this teamwork mentality, so they would love for you to bring opportunity to them, and then, everything is on a case-by-case discussion. So I think, in reality, it may create a lot of, issues for casting directors like you, but I think most of the agents from here in China, we want to, serve the same goal and create less problems for our clients.
So since all of you obviously do cross-border, all of you are constantly in a day-to-day situation where you're trying to figure out some of these conflicts, solve the problems, what are your specific objectives with respect to the Chinese marketplace? And I'll start with you, Andrew. What is it you're trying to achieve when you're working with the Chinese marketplace?
For me, for us, it's twofold. One is to get our Asian American clients into China, and the other one is to bring our Chinese clients, or foreign clients, not just Chinese, because we have Korean clients as well, out into Hollywood. So that's my goal. And it's about creating that global star that is known throughout the world, not just because English media and Chinese media just do not talk to each other. It's like water and oil. Occasionally you get some collusion and some information transfers over, but 9 times out of 10, we're educating people about who this client is in China, or who this client is that we're trying to sell into China, who this client is in the US. So that's what we do.
I think to add on to that, I think also creating really smart vehicles for clients too. I think we live in a day and age where it's great if you can find that one movie that breaks you out into both markets, but that's hard, right? And I think for a lot of Andrew clients, and I know David for yours, like they're putting on producing hats. And I think it's kind of also helping them stretch their creative wings and saying, what does storytelling look like to you now from the other side of, now from a producing standpoint. I think that's also something that's one of my goals, and one of the things that we wanted to do over at CAA is create a smart vehicle that can help sustain your career, not only in both markets, but in other avenues of entertainment.
Lucia, do you think you need actual offices there, boots on the ground, in order to achieve the objectives? Or do you feel you can, obviously CAA does have offices there, UTA doesn't. What do you feel about that? Do you feel you need that in the long term or not at all?
I think that's a good question and timely. In the past almost decade, our Asia department based here at UTA, we've been going back and forth to Beijing and Shanghai, Hong Kong, Korea. So we are there every other 6 weeks. We talk to people on phones, WeChat, and emails every day from here. We also want to get FaceTimes with them there. So in the past few years, we've done great jobs. We bring our Asia clients to here, and we sell our U.S. clients to China, that market. But we're also firm believers of having boots on the ground. And in the past few years, especially the recent years, there's been always a conversation going on for UTA to open an office there. So that's definitely the long-term goal.
Got it.
That's great.
David, how about your group?
We have joint venture partners in Asia, in most of the territories. We don't have boots on the ground because we feel that the local partners have better expertise, so we work very closely with them. But what I'm anticipating is, as one of the panelists mentioned earlier this morning, is that the Chinese market will exceed the U.S. market very soon. It'll be the market, and we have to figure out how to work well with that market. And I think the people there are going to teach us how to work well with them. We can't impose our methodology on them. They're going to have to express to us how they would like for us to work with them.
So everybody, I think, is aware of the fact that Crazy Rich Asians seems to have had an incredible impact at the box office. But do you think it's had an impact on your situations? Has it had an impact in terms of opportunities? Has it had an impact in terms of leverage?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that you're seeing diversity now more than ever, and certainly Western content.
Yes.
I don't think you could see a film or a television show get made without an Asian face.
Yeah, I think it changes everything. A few years ago, when UTA first sold the book to Ivanhoe, nobody knew that it would be big like this. And then we put Jacobson on to produce, and then we put Zhang Chu on, and then Constance Wu, Gemma Chan, a lot of those. It became a great package. It became a great vehicle to break all of those Asian filmmakers, writers, and actors into the mainstream English language market. And then now I think it will come out in China on November the 30th. So finally, the one last market that this movie hasn't tested will finally be there. And after that, I think right after, like 2 weeks after Crazy Rich Asians came out and became a huge success, we sold our client Lillian Yu's romantic comedy Spec, Singles Day, inspired by the Singles Day created by Alibaba in China. It's like the Chinese version Black Friday. We sold it to New Line, and now we are looking for materials for Aquafina, Ali Wong, Zhang Chu, a lot of incoming materials for all of them. So yes, this movie changed a lot of things and opened a lot of doors for Asian American, Chinese American actors here and also out of Hollywood, and material-wise too. And we have a lot of books, articles, graphic novels, and even comic books that has an Asian angle, or we can flip it and to add more Asian elements to it. We are seeing more and more incoming submissions on those too.
I think what it is that we're no longer quiet.
Sorry?
We're no longer quiet because Asian people have traditionally just been very quiet and just taking things as it is, but now we're here to stay.
Yeah.
I love
It's not just actors, right? I notice a lot more writers being hired, and directors, female directors doing like temple pictures, right? So that is a real game changer.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I do love the fact that we have these cases where producers are being like, well, can we make it more Asian? It's
actually come up and say that.
It's really great. It's really wonderful. I think there definitely has been progress. There's been all these great deals that are happening, and I think people are going to benefit. I think I'm excited for what's going to happen after. I feel like it's a good first couple steps. And I'm excited to see now how can we create content, movies, television shows with an authentic lens, right? With not just portraying Asian Americans and Asians as how the Western lens would see them, but actually start to move towards an authentic and different lens of what that looks like.
And also something exciting too, I think from the casting side, is now I have producers and directors asking for new faces.
Yes.
Right? That is exciting. Even from China.
There's an openness to that now.
Exactly, because Crazy Rich Asian, Henry Golding was new face, never acted before.
It
Came
sounds
to
like
us from the accounting department and said, look at that guy who did a travel show. That's how he got the job.
Yes.
Like there were about, 5, like how many casting people casting around the world, and we couldn't find the guy that John really liked. And in the accounting department in Malaysia, I said, hey, check out this guy. And that's it.
That's great.
It sounds like it makes it more organic, as opposed to we're going to pluck somebody from the Chinese marketplace to make the project appeal, hopefully, and it becomes forced. It sounds like this provides an opportunity for much more organic.
Organic stories and casting. And like the 3 jobs I'm doing now, all want new faces. And we're casting globally for that. You know, which is
Now,
exciting.
is that also, in addition to creating more opportunity, is that creating price changes? Is that creating, can you now command more than what you previously commanded for these clients?
I think in any situation that's competitive, you do have more leverage. I think price is a part of the value, right? So while it depends on the opportunity, I think what's great is that there are multiple buyers. I think there are people that are interested and open to conversations, that are open to new faces, that are open to new stories, and that's something that everybody on this panel, and I think everybody in the room, when it shows up on screen, will benefit from.
Does there come a point, though, where it starts to get a little bit crazy? Does there come a point where the fees and the people that are commanding fees, they can get so high that it's starting to actually impede progress? I know that's a tough question for an agent.
That's why it's called
It's
great
like China,
invitations.
right? What China was experiencing. It was so,
Yeah, I think that's mostly in China. I think previously, before this summer, things were very different, where a lot of the highest paying actors, they can take a lot away from the production budget, but that has been going on for many years now. And then there was some discussion on that, and government started to regulating that. I think and people in the industry from China thinks that for the long term, it's a good thing. So things are getting more healthy now. People, the actors' fees are getting more reasonable, so more budget actually goes to the production and post and P&A. So, but for like agencies here, I don't remember having to deal with that kind of like the price has becoming in problem to impede the process. But we're aware of the changes in China, and it's a very positive one.
So, Christina, you mentioned earlier, obviously, and maybe this also impacts an actor's view, now more days, and particularly in China, we see that they're multi-hyphenates, at the very least using their impact, their brand, perhaps to produce. So are you generally advising clients to pursue that road, to pursue the path to actor-driven companies that are also producing, that are developing material? Or do you see that as a benefit or a burden? How do you see that?
I think that's a great thing. And the local agencies are developing really fast, and some of them are, because they not only manage the talent, because there are no regulations or rules against them doing a lot of things. So they also do producing, they also do financing, and sometimes distribution too. So they can do a lot for their clients. And also, for example, we think one of our favorite local agencies, Easy Entertainment, they are one of the few local agencies that actually represent actors, writers, and directors. So they package a lot of film and TV projects here with their own clients. So I think that's one thing that we would love to see. If we have a project that it's written in English, but we think it has great potential for the Chinese market, we would love to send it to an agency like that, because they have packaging powers. Maybe they'd like it to flip it for one of their directors, and they have actors to package on it. So I think Chinese agencies, they're doing producing, investment, and they're doing more for their clients, and they don't only represent actors now, is a very positive signal that the market is evolving, and they're being more sophisticated, and they're becoming more and more like American agencies here, right? So I think that adds to their leveraging power, and also it's a great place to send all the materials to.
So is this a path of choice for a lot of your clients as well?
I think it depends on the state of their career and if that's something that they want to do. I think producing is a time commitment. And I think for some of our clients that are really interested in, say, getting their knocks in, meaning, doing a couple movies, learning the business, I think it's only a matter of time. But I think, again, it's about priorities and what the client wants, what they're interested in.
It's also what they're passionate about. Because
that's right.
Not everything that's offered to them is what they're passionate about. So it allows them to be creative and take some control back and produce things that they like, that they want to be in, that they want to direct, that they want to write. So, right, David?
Absolutely. It's about control and quality. We're at a moment now where we're going to see this wildly improved quality in Chinese films, in my opinion, because we're seeing a maturation of the writing and the directing, where we were kind of in an earlier phase where the market was so ebullient because there was such a huge market, so they would make anything because it would work. Now we're at a place where they've got to earn that from the audience because the audience has become more mature and more savvy. And so it's going to be very interesting to discover those new faces.
How easy is that? I mean, it's great to hear that the demand for new faces is there. What's the greatest challenge in actually finding the new faces that work? Because that's clearly part of your jobs.
It's very difficult.
Is there a formula? Is it your taste? Is that why you're up here? Because you all have great taste? What is it that you see? How do you go about that discovery?
I think PoPing must have a lot to say about this because she's always out there looking for more English-speaking.
It is very difficult, for me, because I cast English-speaking Asian actors, and there aren't too many. And when we do co-productions, we have to cast someone who still have a Chinese passport, like Chinese national. I don't know anyone from Meg is here. I did the China casting for Meg, and that was very difficult. I needed to find a Chinese girl, I think around 8 to 10 years old, who could speak perfect English and can act and still have a Chinese passport. So that was very difficult. But I lucked out. I think I find someone that everybody likes. She's great. Yeah.
She's great.
But that took a long time searching, auditioning, going out to a lot of places all over Beijing. When I did Karate Kid 10 years ago, I think I spent a few months on that job, going to all the high schools in China, in Beijing and Shanghai. I think, is Danny here? Yeah? You know, right? You remember all the schools I had to go to? Every day, nonstop for 3 months, every day, because Beijing is massive, like Los Angeles. You could only go to 2 places in one day. So I spent a few months just to go into school. So it's very tough, especially because of the passport issue. Yeah. Right? And I think I may have a job coming up that has the same requirement. And also a new face. So that is also very, very difficult. Very difficult. Yeah. But when you find that person, it's very, very satisfying.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are a lot more opportunities that are going to China. Thus, the local agencies, they always tip us off. Like, hey, you should check out this client of ours. She's really talented. She went to school in America, or she was born there and she recently came back, and check out his materials. So we work with all the local agencies and managers and even casting directors. They know they're, among their clients who are bilingual, who is interested actually to go to work outside of China. So that's one way. The other way is you just have to keep an eye on the, good work that's coming out on the film and TV side. What's getting made and who's good in it and who represents him? What does he like? So you also develop your own knowledge and taste of discovering the new talent, and then because you know everyone, so you can easily reach out once you really want to reach out and sign that person. So there are, multiple ways.
And I go to the acting schools in China, I go to the Beijing Film Academy, I go to the Central Academy to see new faces, and I actually find one that I thought was very good.
That's amazing. And I think you bring up a good point, that connectivity, and kind of like what Lucia was referring to the local institutions, especially educational institutions, I think is so great. And I think very naturally there are stars or people with talent that are burgeoning and coming out of those places. So having that, a person or two there that can help you understand who's coming out of there that you should pay attention to is a great thing.
I do that, and I will go to Hong Kong, and I go to TVB and check out new faces once every 2 years. But I focus more on China because it's really hard to get people from TVB. Right, yeah. But you guys, when you look for new talent, like me, you look for English-speaking talent, right? Because it's for North America, so you don't, if someone doesn't speak English, then you won't be interested, right?
We probably will keep an eye out because even studios or production companies here, sometimes they're saying we have a Chinese language project, or we'll work with local partners that will need Chinese cast. So in those opportunities, it doesn't have to be English speaking. So,
but mostly it's English.
Mostly English, yes.
What I find very interesting, I was saying to Andrew, because I'm doing a big open call right now, right? And I find some really interesting Asian faces in Europe.
So we've got a little bit of time left, maybe for a couple of questions. So if there are any questions in the audience, I see one person right there.
Hi, guys. I have a twofold question. One is, do you think that your Chinese stars are as interested in, Hollywood productions as they were maybe like 5 years ago? And secondly, sort of conversely, do you think that the Chinese market specifically has opportunities for some of the Chinese American or Asian American talent, the way that we've seen, like in Korea, like Stephen Yeun is in Burning, but I haven't seen something like that for an ABC talent. So, twofold question. Thanks.
Maybe, Christina, you go with the first part, and Andrew, you go with the second?
Yeah, sure. In terms of Chinese star interest in large co-productions, I think it depends. Well, we also have to acknowledge that co-productions look very different, and I think that's a whole nother panel. But is there interest in opportunities in North America? Yes. Does it depend on the story and the role and the timing? Yeah. Those are all things that matter as well. I will say that, there's a Chinese star that is, I feel like actors anywhere, creatives anywhere will always look for opportunities that challenge themselves, that it's something different, something fresh. So I think we can't always assume that Chinese stars want to come here to make a lot of money or do a giant movie and get famous. I think it's actually to do something different, to challenge themselves. So.
And likewise,
Can I ask
on
something?
the Asian American side, they just want to try something different. So
Yeah,
I've sent our clients over there to make a name for themselves. Like Selena, Selena Jade, for example, who I share of CAA. She's Chinese American, she's Asian American, born in Hong Kong but has an American passport. But she's now, because of Wolf Warrior 2, that's blown her up in China. So it's because that story was right, and now we're just looking for the right material in the US. We've turned down quite a few things because they're just not right. We're just looking for the right material. It always comes down to script.
That's right. Yes.
Script, material, who you're working with.
Yeah.
That's right.
I want to ask something, like Rebecca, right? You asked the question. About 5 years ago, or even 4 years ago, when I called up a Chinese manager, that I have a project. They said, what kind of project it is? I said, it's an American film from Hollywood. They're really interested in listening to what it is. Now, the answer usually say, they have no money, the script is bad, the role is bad. No, thank you. This is the answer we get now. Don't you guys agree?
I do.
Yes.
Yeah. Remember, I don't want to name the person in the project. Remember, I sat in his China's manager's office for 2 hours begging him to take the job.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people are becoming picky because
Very picky. They said, well, the script is not good enough.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the second lead. I don't care how many millions you're throwing at me. I don't like the script. And in China, they can make $1 million US doing a commercial, right? And a Chinese actress, B-list, not even A-list, turned down an American TV series because she could make $1 million US doing a web series.
It's interesting. I mean, I think...
Yeah. So it's very different. Very different now.
It has changed. But I think it's also something that's always existed, especially if we just look at the US and look at sort of the change from television to film, and how you can, now that television is really global and you can make quite a bit of money in television, you have some people not wanting to come out of television when that was flipped before.
No,
So
like the one I'm
interesting.
casting now.
Yeah.
Right? One actress turned me down, like she's not even A-list, because she said, I can do something more interesting in China and you want so many years option, forget it.
Right.
Right.
Well, if it's a TV deal, and
Exactly,
somebody's looking
right.
for
Quite a big
series
commitment.
options,
A big commitment. You know how much they can make in a few years, right? And then they have to commit to you for 3 years, 4 years. They're not prepared to do that.
Yeah, it's
and if you
complicated.
can work and continue to work and get great compensation, then you don't need the
That's
lure.
what they say now. American jobs, the money is not good. They want a lot of your time, you know. And the script is not good. The role is bad or small. He said, would you go to Tom Cruise with this? They said no.
And just to answer to the second part of your question quickly, American actors go to China. I think previously there haven't been a lot of very successful co-productions, and people at some point were like afraid or are concerned that if it's a co-production, it's really difficult. So, but right now, for example, Han Yan directed Animal World, and it has Michael Douglas in it, and it's supposed to be a trilogy, and that was only the first one. Michael Douglas's role in the second one, third one will be bigger. And I'm sure there are, at every agency and Chinese companies, there are some version of a good co-production film or TV project that will have good roles that make sense for a real Hollywood actor to go to China. So we'll see more of that as more those projects are being put together.
They're much more open to it now.
Yes,
Right? Before, when you call me, I have a Chinese project, they don't talk to you about it. Now they want to know more.
Yeah.
They don't just hang up now.
And now we
Right?
also have
Correct?
English language projects in China, being shot in China, being produced by Chinese companies that will do that kind of dual casting. So, previously you had Tangde, Talent International, which did Skip Trace, obviously, which was Jackie Chan, Johnny Knoxville. Well, they have one shooting right now, which is Jackie again, but John Cena, being directed by an American director, but being produced completely in China.
In China, in
and
Chinese.
the whole production is China, and obviously English language.
That's when the complication about co-production, how do you define?
Which
right,
is a whole
new thing,
other
you know.
panel.
But yeah,
So
which is also different from an official co-production because the U.S. doesn't have a treaty with the rest of the world, right?
Exactly. I think we have time for one more question. So there's a hand over there.
Hi, my name is Maki, and I'm representing the Recording Academy of the Grammys. And we in the music industry are so grateful for the film industry and all that US, China have done for expanding music for musicians. And oh, by the way, we have thousands and thousands of musicians who have Chinese passports and are new faces. So please come to me for my business. 不是很感谢，我的名字是谢明姐，很感谢大家帮忙，我是代表音乐方面的。So my question is, very quickly, is I know that we're talking about talent in China and then English-speaking talent, going vice versa. But one of our biggest trends in the last decade has been music in soundtracks and music adding enhanced value for movies. So a lot of times studio revenues will go way up because the music is great, and studio executives can also sell the soundtrack and the music on top of it. So we at the Academy are very interested to hear your thoughts about casting talent both ways and capitalizing on this trend of music being part of the talent's portfolio and their arsenal of providing value to the film. And how do you see that progressing and transcending in the years to come, especially with Crazy Rich Asians and the opening of Chinese roles in American film. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dave.
Just to top of mind, the soundtrack to Crazy Rich Asians is fantastic. And if you haven't listened to it, it's on Spotify. It's globally appealing. And I think that a soundtrack like that is emblematic of what you're discussing, which is it's Asian artists covering Western songs so successfully. It is a great example. And what I would suggest to the Academy is to make an issue out of that and really celebrate it, because that soundtrack is the exact example of what you're suggesting. I can't point to many other Chinese films that have a soundtrack that has such a global appeal, but that would be my first step, is using that as a case study to break out an artist, just like they found Henry Golding, do the same thing with a Chinese artist that did one of those songs.
Has music, have you gotten involved with music at all?
Only quite a bit in India. Like, I work quite a bit with some clients in India and some production companies there, and for them, the soundtrack is so important. They'll usually use like Pritham or specific people there, just because for a lot of the movies that have singing and dancing, that is what is used to sell the film. So, but that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay,
Great.
thank you. Thank you, everybody. That was really great.
Thank you, Stephen.